There was hundreds of butterflies who came by the shoes. They start to carry the shoes up into the air. Hundreds of them taking the shoes off down the river. Down there, till we could not see them. It's so warm here. You're inside this body. Wider. It's wet. We found this here. The birds are stealing the raspberries. Swallow this. This voice is the sun touching your face. Feel the sun in your mouth. It's so hot. You swallow the sun. The rocks are naked. It's so nice. Oh, it feels so good. The bird is naked. His voice is a bird on your hand. It's so soft. Here. You're inside the blue. The bird came here, one you saw earlier. He just came back and went, dropped it out of his mouth, spit it out of his beak. This, someone might have lost his iPhone charger. He just jumped a few steps and flew up there. The water is naked. A cloud just fell. You are in the middle there, in the middle of this woman. You are in the image. You enjoy it. This image is undressing you. It's wet. Smells delicious. This image is kissing you. Licks you. Smells of tasty.
Dove c'è amore?
Bene, è bella la vita.
Stop.
Che bello.
Soft shadow on your face. This bird is inside your mouth. You are naked. Tastes sweet and a little bit sour, a bit like metal. Come closer. The birds are in the room with us, flying around the room. The birds are eating the raspberry from the car mirrors. You hold on this image. You go inside the image. Look. Hello. This image touches you. You drank this image. This is for you. Hold on tight. You swallow this image. You're falling, you can't hold on. The man that was there earlier just disappeared into the rock. That's all that's left of him. Car's waiting for you.
Venici. Vedi? È così che è bella, vedi? Così è bella.
Siamo là, c'è l'amore, c'era tu. Dimmi sì, se ti va. Il mio letto è forte tu. Così poco di più. Della gomma più ma tu. Perché tu non ci sei. E mi sta
This film is breathing with me.
Un lavoro strano e tu.
This film is alive.
Chi lo sai?
And you want to swallow everything. This image is gather all these images, gather them all, this one, and swallow them in one lot, inside you. Stop breathing now.
I don't know if I can really express how thrilled I am to have her here on the stage, but I'll try throughout the duration of this conversation. But I like that to start with that idea of swallowing, that idea of the explosion in your mouth, right? And swallow is the title of this piece that we just saw, the video piece. Do you want to maybe speak a bit about why you chose that title?
A lot of my video, I try them to be more than pixel. They compete with life as well. Or they're translating something. They want to be more than pixels. They want to be the sun. They want to be the touch. They want to. Can you translate that with that medium? Can you swallow a smell? Can you swallow a sensation? Can you swallow an image? And can you gather images and to enhance a sensation as well? Or can you provoke a sensation through a gathering of images? Can you also... it's a kind of this it's always about comparison as well. One image is next to another. You know, how you same with raspberries. If you've got little green raspberry, you realize it's not as good as the really good red one. And images are about this comparison of moments, of quiet moments to extreme intensity. And that's, in some way, that's what I was trying to translate with that video, swallowing the world, but and it's slightly frustrated because it's not a bird, it's just a pixel, or many pixels next to each other, but it tries to enhance that. But it was also basically, I remember when I was offered to do this piece was a Max Mara Art Prize for Women in London. And at first I was like, oh, why just for women? But then I was like, oh no, that's great. I can go. But I mean, of course, it's also made me very aware of my position as a woman artist. And before I just didn't want to see difference between genders. But I was kind of naive as well, but in a good way sometimes. But anyway, when I went there, they asked, what would you like to do if you go to Italy? And I was like, maybe it should be this idea of the Grand Tour, or, you know, because I'm from the north of Europe, north of France, Flanders, but I lived in London for a really long time, where my grandparents live in England. And it's very much this history of the Grand Tour, going to Italy, and the cliché of it, or the master of it, you know, but also it's the perfect, this idea of between tourism and the idea of a place. You know, you go with an idea. When I filmed the woman who was friends of mine, which were at the residency, and my cousin was around, I was like, oh, let's go in the waterfall. Just film this scene, but it was actually freezing. Just pretend you enjoy it. And there's a big motorway next to it, and you know it's all a construct. It's this producing an idea of something, you know. And I think with the Grand Tour, it was very much this as well. This producing the ideal landscape, or you know, and the Flemish would mix it with their own landscape and add this very Italian landscape into their own landscape, and sort of taking from both worlds. And that was a kind of start. And then when I was in the first time, I must have took a taxi in my life, but I got a taxi to the airport. I was like, And I felt the sun on my face, and I was, this is it. This is what I want to translate. Can I translate into a film the feeling of the sun on one's face, And it's not possible, but you play, you translate. How do you translate an emotion or the feeling of a sensation, a moment in time? And this kind of triggered the whole film, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think this idea of almost proposing vision that you talk about, that maybe the film can do, that's something that your language does as well in these works. It's you're calling upon the viewer to participate in certain ways through your language. It's like you propose an idea for them, and then they have to complete it. And language is something that kind of undergirds a lot of your work. So when you talk about translation, you're translating experience, but you're also thinking about translation in terms of language and what it does and how we translate it. Do you want to speak about that?
Yeah. I think language was something that I kind of struggle with. I never felt I was particularly good at French or in English, but I love that words create images. I think it's one of the most visual, writing is one of the most visual artwork, because it's opening to many visions, which I'm totally fascinating. So I've done a lot of work of mine are just text on a wall or signs, and I think it's very powerful, the idea that I don't give an image, you're making it. Everyone has its own image of a window or its own image of a land, the seaside, or and it's all this. And then of course there's the mistranslation and translation, and I think that's where I often float in because I think it was language. That's why I did the art. I think I felt I couldn't totally tackle it properly, but at the same time, I loved the misunderstanding of it or the complexity of it. When I moved to England, it was really then this play on word of. There's a piece I've done called heating, it, and the heat of something, and all this kind of start to question the meanings of words, and then adding layers of. There's another piece I did called What, where I interview a curator, Mike O'Connor, who talks about moving images in a very beautiful and academic way, and I translate him like I completely misunderstand him, and it's all a little love story underneath, it's of misunderstand the words and start playing with them, it keeps appearing. And even in the piece that I've done in Venice, it was between French and English, and I will tell you a lot of salade is one of the sentences. In French, you say, je vais vous raconter des salades. It's like, I will tell you a lot of bullshit, but not tonight. Just tell the truth tonight.
Well, and you put that on a tapestry, right, with an image of salad. We will tell you a lot of salads. So here, translation also in our galleries, you're translating your experience into that film that we just saw, but then you're also then translating it into tapestry. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process and how the imagery relates or doesn't relate?
Yeah, I think in some ways the way this is my grandma's made this tapestry. I'm from a family of textile, and she often helps me with making the tapestries. And this is a collage we work together from, and then we translate it into tapestry. But it's layers of the research I did before I made the video, but also for me it's similar way of working as editing. The sound might, might say the opposite of the image, or it will question what you're seeing. But here it's sort of there's no priority almost, you know, there's a watercolor as much as might be a very large painting collage next to each other, and it's about layering and creating a narrative, and it was a lot about also this the new world we live in with technology, like the past is holding into the future, or the future is holding into the past, and so the columns are holding a TV screen, a Sony one, or I don't know, Panasonic, and it's about swallowing still the ice cream, and this representation of Italy in some way, in the cliches of it almost. But I was also looking very much at this, I was telling you earlier, this beautiful, I think it's 30 after Christ, they found this beautiful courtyard painted like a paradise setup. I think it's called La Maison d'Or, or the Golden House in Pompeii. And I saw that piece in Rome when I was there on the residency, and I wanted to embrace the viewer in a similar way to before you enter the video. It's almost you gathered by this kind of dream fucked up landscape as well, because our world was unbalancing nature, but also it's supporting, or it's trying to hold each other, and then you enter into this, you're being swallowed by the image, and of course swallow is also quite sexually connotated. It has this breathing, it's a rhythm, it's a kind of I think with sound, that's when sound is really, really present in my work, where sound is really is the heartbeat of the film. It's almost controlling our own breathing when we watch, or it's either suffocating or you play along with it. You go along. I don't know.
Well, and your work seems to ride that line a little bit of control. You know, there's suggestion, but then there's also control. It's kind of coercion.
Yeah, it's propaganda.
Seduction.
It's seduction. We're talking a lot with Jonas Stahl, I'm working with at the moment. He's really into propaganda art in general, and I think, of course, propaganda depends how it's used and for what. But advertising is basically master of it, I think. But if I want, as an artist, can I use images as a propaganda of a sensation or an emotion, or trigger something to the similar technique of pulling you along into. It's also, I'm gonna tell you a little story, come along, and then things happen. You know, it's a language, I guess.
Yeah, a reoccurring theme in your Venice installation was, I remember hearing at least once, if not more, you are like an insect caught in a flower, right? And that's something I think about with your installation work. There's this kind of desire to envelop the visitor that seems to translate into that work. And you can kind of see it, like you said here. This is the original display of this work, is that right? When you displayed it for the Maxima?
It's just a print and a collage on top. Mm-hmm. But I always really, really wish I could do a tapestry then. And my grandma didn't have time; she was too busy. And finally, I got her to make the tapestry, and it's now here. So she's so proud.
Well, and your grandma isn't the only one you work with. Let's see. So this is on the same travel theme. Travel seems to be a big theme for you in your work, and your uncle. This is related to your uncle, right?
Yeah. So that's basically my uncle is using me. After seeing Swallow and many of my films, like, but we could really create a. So my uncle seeing Swallow is like, man, we could make a business out of it. You know, we could go deep travel Inc. And he decided to create his travel agency. We can flip. I'll let you. Yeah. So this is my uncle's travel agency. It looks a bit rough, but there's a few things you'll recognize from another narrative from my work, which is the living room of I made a piece called Wanty, was Tate Modern commissioned me to make a film about my grandparents, because my granddad is a conceptual artist in the north of England. But now it's been years and years that he's lost, because his last concept was to dig a tunnel from the north of England to Africa, but without the authority to know about it. And so you should see their house is just full of mud everywhere. It's just a little hob of gas where my grandma can still cook, and you'll see the living room is mud everywhere. There's just one spot which is not muddy, is where my grandma sits, and it's full of packet of crisps, and because now she gets delivery from Tesco, she doesn't even go out, so she's just eating crisps, and it's just total mess. But anyway, there's a few hints of, for example, the sculpture there is, they were really close friends of Kurt Schwitter's. That's why, actually, I didn't say at the beginning, but the Tate invited me because they knew my granddad was a friend of Kurt Schwitter's. And I said, okay, it's not because I'm a good artist, but just the connection or whatever. So I was a bit pissed off, but I made the film. And we got a lot of this sculpture that he kept giving us when he came and visit, and my grandma got so pissed, so annoyed. There's so many painting, and that she thought it should be useful. So she repairs the chairs, and the arms with Kurt Schwitter. That's a Kurt Schwitter piece. There's some trays at home for serving the teas, which are his early work. So she tries to improve it, usually with putting big sun on it and clouds. Anyway, so my uncle has decided to bring the whole family together and proposed this idea of deep travel. I think we can go through the images maybe. Which there's a lot of hidden messages under the tables, and no more government ink. That's something that will come back. So it's called Deep Travel Ink. So it's also the beginning of the work around the octopus as this writing agent, waiting for everything to get dusty. Yeah, so that's easy. It gets really dusty quickly. We actually were invited by Miami Basel to bring it there. So if you go to Miami, you'll meet my uncle. He's there. He's been installing a new franchise.
Does it open today? I think
today or tomorrow, I think. And that's my grandma's recipe of tea. So it's tea with always with a bit of gin. And
so if
lemon.
you go to Miami, you can taste her grandma's tea.
Sorry?
If they go to Miami, they can taste your grandma's tea.
If you go there, you'll be welcome. See, they might ask you to take a seat and wait for a bit. Sometimes they forget people and just go off, and you might wait for long. I don't know. So there's a lot of reminiscence. There's some pottery my grandma's made. There's just a lot of little wink to our family and how we could take you deeper. And that's an advert that I think my uncle did from my own video. He just cut and paste anything. So this is Deep Travel Ink. You could be there. Yeah, you could be there.
Well, and of course, we're hearing the layering of the same sort of breathing that we hear in Swallow. And this is something that I think is really interesting, is how there are reoccurring motifs in your work. There are things that pop up from piece to piece. It's like you're using montage and collage in your work itself, but then across works. So it's like your whole oeuvre is fodder for new collages.
Yeah, I think it's definitely this idea of it's not an idea, but it's like how what's the meaning of an image? An image can always have another meaning or be reassociated, or there's always a narrative between all the pieces, as you saw between the tapestry. This is Deep Travel Ink. It's very intense promotional video. But yeah, so it's this link between the work is very important for me. It's this one organic process. The family can use my work, I can use my family, I can use my history or add another history to it. And I love this idea of losing a bit control, and that we might, it might take another turn with whoever uses it or touches it.
There's also an element, I've heard you talk about the kind of travel and this kind of work as an escapism to a certain extent. Do you want to talk about that at all? I mean, what does escapism, why is that appealing to you? Why is that something that is such a reoccurring theme in your work, perhaps?
That's a house you could win if you go deep with us. It could be it's that subconscious. I made that's from a video called How to Make Money Religiously, which was a video I made for the new museum in New York. The way what was your...
Oh, I just was asking you to talk a little bit about escapism.
Okay, yeah.
Because there is this element of fantasy to your work, or this element of the calling upon imagination in a way that, maybe we think of fiction operating or movies. There's something about how you ask us, you propose for us the opportunity to imagine that we're somewhere that we're not.
Yeah, I think it's escapism, or almost to connect more to everything. It's kind of escapism from the norm, maybe, to be even more connected to the norm, or even more, everything's becoming more important as well. Or could we become this flow? Could we escape ourselves by becoming something else? Or could we escape through an image going further into another state? And it's kind of almost, or like my granddad's desire to escape through, as a conceptual piece, to dig this tunnel to Africa was our desire to go further and deeper, and I think that's deeply in humans' nature, to keep searching and provoking our brains and provoking the world we live in, I guess. And actually, I brought you this vegetable because you wouldn't believe it. I've been, since my granddad is not back for many years now, I've been going to church regularly and asking for a sign, a sign of God. Where's Granddad? And this morning I woke up in my hotel in Toronto, and you wouldn't believe it, but these vegetables were on my bed. Maybe we can play the video so you get. These are the vegetables that fell from the sky the other day. In my bedroom, I was just sleeping, and suddenly I woke up and it was 4 vegetables. It was one. The lemon, the onion, tomato, and the carrot. They were all there in front of me on my bed. I was sleeping really well, like every night I was like, and I woke up, this was there, I couldn't believe it. I thought, what is it? How can this vegetable be there on my bed? And I realized that I looked up, I looked at the ceiling just above my bed, and there was 4 perfect shape, like carrot shape, tomato shape, onions, lemon,
all in the ceiling, perfect, like almost like a cartoon, just totally perfect, just in front, above me. And I thought, no, that can't be it. I couldn't believe it. But I was like, that's it. It's a sign of God. I couldn't believe this is a sign of God. I was like, finally. My whole life been like, I've been looking for a sign of God, and here it was. I couldn't believe it. I woke up my granddad next door. I said, hey, granddad, look at those vegetables. Was one. Look, they're there. It must have been a sign of God. They fall from the sky on my bed. He was like, oh, leave me alone. I'm working. I'm busy. Never disturb me when I'm working. And I know anyway what he's doing. He smashed the door and said, go and do your stuff. Stop bothering with me with little things. And I had those 4 vegetables in my hand. I was like, oh, what can I do? So then I went to the priest. I ran. It was really early, and the priest was still in his pajamas. Look what I found on my bed, and I showed him the holes in my ceiling. It's nothing to do with God. Something may have fallen from a plane or from something. And this is a sign of God. I've been fucking looking for a sign of God. Oh, so this fucking priests, they don't fucking understand anything. They don't fucking understand. So I should frame them and do something, I'm gonna keep them as a relic, and that's why they're there. That's the actual vegetable. That's the 4 of them, Those are the 4 vegetables that fell on my bed. If you came to my room, you would see the perfect holes are still there. And I get a bit wet these days, it's raining and it's not great. But, I want to keep it as a sign, I will send it to the Pope or something in Italy, maybe he will believe me. Fucking priest.
That must have been shocking. Yeah. I mean, do these sorts of mystical events happen to you often?
Well, it happens sometimes, these things you don't believe could happen, and they happen. And so I can't believe these are the vegetables. And so I brought them because I thought you have to see them, and you can even pass them on. You'll see the actual vegetable. They're not plastic. They're an actual onion, soft tomato. The lemon smells of lemon. It's real carrot. But it happens. But it's also this, the extension of a film into a physical space, and the physical becoming. See, they're real. We need to send them to the Pope later.
You need to use all of your senses while you're here. Well, and you said even the extension into the physical space. I mean, scale, obviously, is something you play with a lot,
I'm really upset, they didn't have a big enough camera. They had to cut my
we should have had a larger screen, too. I mean, maybe we could have shown your whole body.
It's a shame, really.
It's a shame, total shame. So I'm wondering if we should talk about Venice. Magic is something that occurs in your work in Venice, too. There is this sense of kind of the magical, this sense of the mystical that punctuates that video. But
yes, the idea of relics as well. I think with art practice, in some ways, it's very close to... I'm really attached to that everything has its importance, and this glass could be an artwork or is a relic of a time you drank from it when you said those few words, and that's why the mystical comes in a bit, this idea of as well the museum being this new church as well, or where we position our life, we get a kind of, it's also a place for, positioning or the way we do things. I think we go a bit less to church, but some of us still do. And I grew up in a very Catholic upbringing where there's a lot of these narratives of belief, and I'm interested how in the art context it's completely it's playing the same thing as well. An artwork is mystified. If it's entered here, it has it will be taken care. It will live through some history, but it might also be forgotten and stuck in a basement, in a storage. There's a piece I made actually, which is my hands similar to this piece, who talked to another artwork. It's called Take Care. It's like, don't worry, when they all forget you, I'll be here for you, don't worry. I'll blow the dust out of you, don't worry, even if you're in a little storage. Or this idea of the object becoming very aware of its own presence and also its situation where it will be kept or where society decide to take it is definitely important in the practice. And it kind of relics, it's a proof that it existed as well, in the same way when I create this environment, like in Venice, you sat on the seat of the idea of the facteur cheval scene when I film in the south of France. You become a protagonist as a viewer. You are the carpet. You are swallowed by the octopus. So yeah.
And you're in some ways made a protagonist by being chosen to represent France in Venice, right? There is something, like, you've been put in a position as the artist selected to do the pavilion. Did you know immediately that you wanted to reroute the traffic into the pavilion?
Yeah, I mean, that was straight away, for sure. I knew, I think it's also, I feel like wanting to, I think when I was in London as well, I see myself as an immigrant, same as not really belonging to, I belong to many cultures, especially, I guess, European culture, because that's where I grew up. But this idea of not especially always entering through the main door, when my practice grew, I grew slowly from finding my ways within a situation, and I wanted that you're not always invited through the main door, and that you have to find your way. And it's also, this was very physical about, because the whole project, ideally you'd go deeper to the back of this building, so when you arrive at the pavilion you see this, and you have some mist, so your Francia is almost it's a bit lost in a cloud, but it's also, if you've been to Venice, it's on the little hill, so it has this kind of colonial history as well, with a certain pavilion which have anyway. So I think it was very important for me that we need to find a different way to enter this pavilion, but also the main one of the subject of this piece was to be a kind of an octopus going back to the depths, the origin almost of the world and our human interaction with it, but almost like it's an octopus who goes inside under a rock and hides in, and then you're protected, and then you're cozy in there, and it's this voyage. It was really about this trip going through. So it was, I met some people along the way. So it was about 9 months ago. My uncle, of course, wanted to join, but we started from Paris to the north of France, where I'm from, and trying to touch the landscape, the people, and slowly we went in a tiny car from Nanterre, which is a suburb of Paris, with beautiful towers, which are called the Cloud Towers. And there we took a car. We were 5 or 6. We arrived in Roubaix, where we went to a little cafe, and suddenly in that cafe was a magician, which the table start to levitate, and so the whole thing was about this escape or this travel, about connecting, touching things. And there was this also Les Terrils, is this coal mine, which is where I'm from, then a big terril, and there was by chance we passed by, and there was a woman singing in Arabic on top of the hill. So it was all things that happened, and then there the car broke down, so we had to take, we got some horses, and we galloped all the way to the Facteur Cheval, who's this incredible place that it's a postman who built his dream palace, and I love art brut. I love this, the deep desire to create, and this guy just collected stone every day as he was posting letters and built his ideal palace. And we arrived that night and we filmed a bit in the space, and then in the morning there was this fanfare brass band there singing l'Italiano Vero. And we then went to Marseille and swam all the way to Venice, and we found the pavilion, and we sort of enter it from the back and inside. But yeah, actually that's another history. Is like I was also trying to dig a tunnel to connect with Britain, which is next door, for Brexit. I'm like, come on, we need to. But then they were not trying. They didn't do much from their side, so I was a bit.
So I think that's a good point. That escapist art doesn't mean that it's not political. Yeah. There can be politics in escapism.
Yeah, it's definitely politics in the image, and I made a lot of works which I created soundtracks which also involve musicians who a piece for Brexit as well, called from the French perspective, "Stay with us, the party's not over," and it's about you think your heels are better, but there's some good there. I mean, it's a nice track we worked on here, but. We digged halfway, and we thought the British have to dig as well a bit. So
and they didn't. They let you down.
Well,
not yet.
Not yet. We're almost there. But as you go, so that was the entrance where I was digging. So you arrive through a kind of muddy path into upstairs, which is this resin piece where glass and resin have fossilized, almost like it's between. It's kind of glamorous. It's about also of course the canals and what's happening with Acqua Alto. When I went on the last opening, was quite emotional because I think the piece was really dealing with our over-consumerism as well, but also the kind of beauty of the clash of things that we had to. So this is the salads. When we were going to tell you a lot of salads, they turned hard as glass there. And this is when you enter the next room. It's the reminiscence of kind of the Facteur Cheval, and you're allowed to sit on the seats and watch the film, which is about 27 minutes.
Well, and earlier when you were describing kind of the experience of watching especially a projected film and kind of having the light wash over you as a visitor, but then also the collective experience of watching a film, that's something I really felt when I was in here. I really felt the presence of the people around me who are watching it with me.
Yeah, I think what I love with moving images is that it's collective. We feel each other. There's a piece I made also called a monologue. It's like, imagine the person next to you is naked. You don't read. But it's this really collective awareness of one another. And within this piece, there was also the people I met along the way. There was a school teacher, there was a priest, there was a dancer, musician. what do you call someone who puts his limb?
Like an acrobat, maybe?
Yeah, there's an
or
acrobat, but there's also an octopus character. There was as well, it's also about mixed generation. It was very important for me because the world is more and more separate, and I really wanted that we all together and arrive there. And they were quite a lot of the person I've met. There was a magician as well. They came to Venice, and they were part of the piece, I guess. So they would be around, sometimes singing to the film, or sometimes correcting the film. Oh, this is not right. It didn't happen like that. She cut the good bit. So this is one of the characters, Bama, who sings to the image at some point. So sometimes they're just smoking outside. But I really like the fact that you might have a conversation with them after, or you might just see them smoking, and just to have this, again, a proof of, it's again a kind of relics of a narrative or history that can carry on expanding.
Yeah, as I exited the pavilion, Nico, I think that's who was there. He was out front, and he had music playing, and he was instructing or kind of helping two young boys to feel the music. So there was in the front, where you would normally enter the French pavilion, there was a sort of dance lesson going on. And it was one of the people who we had just seen in the work. And that felt really magical. It felt very joyful, very magical. Everybody was kind of standing around watching these two little boys jam with Nico.
Yeah, and it's not controlled. I really wanted them to be themselves, or carry on the narrative of and the last weekend, which was just this weekend, we were all there, and it was really extreme human moments where we lived so much, and they lived the pavilion and the audience and even the wardens of the rooms. Everyone, we were just so in sync. It was so special to feel like it's a trip. A physical trip to an exhibition, to an exchange, can be that kind of depth. And they also, at the end, it was funny because they watched the film so many times, but when it closed, we went off to dinner, and they put the film once more. It was like, you've done it for 6 months, just like completely. Anyway, but this is a pigeon smoking a cigarette or thinking about it. That's on the Saint-Marc. That's a big tapestry as well. We produced with my grandma about the trip.
Well, and there were 2 different ways to exit, and they were very different, right? There was some difference to them, so it was almost like you chose your way out.
It was 2 different. Of course, it's silly to talk about a setup because it's very physical, but you have to touch the walls. You're in darkness. You don't know where to go. This is the table from Roubaix in the north of France, where things are levitating, and the object starts to narrate a story as well. But you could choose the left and exit the left tentacle, and the idea was it's not an idea, but the feeling was that each character was a tentacle of the octopus, and then we're there to touch the world, to exchange with the world, but also as an audience, you could become a tentacle. And what I love with the symbolic of the octopus is that his brain, and the brain of the tentacle is it's in the tentacle, so it's very, very direct brain. It doesn't have memory, it doesn't store, but it's really intelligent, but it's very direct. So I wanted a direct, this idea of direct exchange, and we all could be tentacles. And that was the end of a dream when the aqua altar came up, and the fish are going all wonky, throwing water.
So what do you think? Should we invite some questions?
Yes, I also want you to. I'm trying to use my audience.
Oh. How are you going to use them?
I'd like to I've got a line I'd love that everyone could scream at the end. But you first.
Do you want that to happen now or after questions?
I just say, if you could say, we are the many tentacles. We will fill you and swallow you, swallow it all. Would you be ready to do that?
Did you get that?
We will fill you and swallow you.
We will feel you and swallow you.
Wait,
we are the many tentacles.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, very loud.
We are the many tentacles. We will fill you and swallow you.
Thank you.
That was very well done.
I'll send it to him. I think he'll be very happy.
So, does anybody have a question?
This continues to the question of language and your use of language. I was wondering if you have done versions of the swallow in French, or how it would translate in Italian or Arabic or Russian, and if we would have the same impact as it is in English, and also the use of the body as opposed to female bodies. Have you played with the idea of nude male bodies and how that would feed into this sense of openness and spreading, and it's just a very sort of liquid flow into the swallow?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. There is 2 questions in one, but it's good. Yeah.
Hey, at least they were questions.
In terms of, I think that was a big, it was a big issue when I was asked to do the French Pavilion, because I haven't lived in France for a long time. Like, it was 20 years or more, so I'm terrible at my emails, and so I was like, oh my God, I need to write to Minister of Culture or like the French Institute. Like, oh, full of mistakes. Like, it's not. So I need to get my uncle to correct, and then it takes a long time. But I think this idea of translating, I think there's always a play within it, but I think it will become a piece each time. I can't just translate a subtitle. I think it has to be really embraced in the production of it. I've been asked in the past to put translation, and I prefer if it's on paper almost, so you can read what it means before or after, but not so much translated on the actual image. But for Venice, for example, it was really a piece which was Franco-English. So it was really there was half, I think, in the dialogue, which were French and English, and there was always a mistranslation underneath. So if you read, I would say, for example, it's gone. It was about Notre Dame, actually, on the opening, just before it had burnt, and maybe a week before. So it was there's a moment in the film where it's like it was about the teacher tells us that he talks about a little animal who's disappeared, who's gone from the planet, and then I also put the piece. I put Notre Dame, and it says it's gone, and then underneath in French is gomme. Gomme means rubber. So it's this kind of play. It's definitely it's right. It's kind of poetic. It has to enter the work basically. And in Italian, I would have to. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, but in Italian, it's just like an ice cream. It's fine.
Well, and there seems to be an element of confounding expectations. Even the title of your work in Venice, Deep Sea Blue, surrounding you, the sea isn't S-E-A, it's S-E-E.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully it's deep seeing, deep connecting, not just the sea. I think it's always at play with the situation. And when I went to Italy, it was definitely conscious, but my work is predominantly in English with a very strong French accent. But I can't help it; it's there. And as I was saying, I enjoy. I use my voice a lot because it's extremely practical. It's always there. I don't need to book her. She's here. I can record her when she wants.
Plus, you have that perfect voice for it. It's like ASMR. It's triggering. There's that whisper that you use. You've trained yourself.
Yeah, but I think everyone could do it. It's just very practical. It's there. She's cheap as well. So.
At the Biennale, your chairs were not ordinary chairs that people would sit in to watch the video. I'm wondering why you constructed chairs especially for that.
That was. They were extremely connected to a sequence in the film, which is the sequence of the facteur cheval, which is the man who built his own palace from the stones I was talking about. So it has the same very, very close aesthetic of his palace in terms of... and it was like almost I wanted those chairs to, like, they came out of the carpet, so the carpet was printed as well. Like they were just the point of a palace almost. The chairs became the top of the palace you could sit on, and as if it'd been swallowed and it's floating just on the surface. And having to do with chairs was important. This was to make you one was a bum. You are as much the chair as the film. You're positioning your body in a different way. Or there's one way it was a horse riding cowboy. Suddenly you're aware of your position in the space, and you become kind of a protagonist of kind of one of the characters. And if you see the film, there's a sequence in Facteur Cheval. The group is in the dark at night, and they all gather and talk. And it could be the audience as well, gathering and feeling things together. And, so that's how it came.
So I apologize. I came a little later, and I didn't hear the introduction, and I'm not familiar with your work, but. Everything you talk about reminds me an awful lot of situations. I mean, you're creating situations, it seems, all the time. That's an overriding principle. I'm curious to know, to what extent do you deliberate, prepare, take notes, or is it very important for you to sort of experience something and translate it instantly into the situation that you create, like the pathway from England to Venice that you described earlier? And then the second question was, who is the uncle, and what's his part in the creation of the situation in Venice, for example?
So first part.
The situation.
Yes, I'm a bit like an octopus. I don't have much memory. The situation, I think I like to be quite reactive to a situation, but it's planned, but with a lot of doors open, like, let's hope we might meet a magician. We might even plan it a bit, that it's there, but also for example, in Roubaix, where I'm from, it was, it's a very it was the end of textile industry, so it's a very poor part of France. And when we were in that cafe, which is Café de l'Opéra, which is run by Moroccans, at first we were a bit wary of each other, and slowly it was like, can we all be there and film each other? And at the end, we start to completely play together, and the magician made them disappear, like hide behind your counter, and then when I do this, you come up, and they start playing with each other, and then suddenly the whole area around the Roubaix were all by the window looking at the magicians, and it was kind of a situation that you create a little situation, then let things roll around and start hopefully playing together with that situation. So that's when I work with people, that's what happened. But even myself, if I just go and, so I take an apple and I might have an idea that it needs to feel sour or it needs to feel sweet, but it's by trying different things with it. I think it's very important to, often I definitely have a sense, like with Swallow, I wanted to translate the sun on the face. So, there's a kind of beginning of a concept, but then it's by letting it cook and evolve through either editing or filming and then my tentacle forgot the second question.
About your uncle.
What?
About your uncle.
And my uncle.
Was he involved in
he's
Venice?
Just everywhere. I can't. Luckily, he's not here tonight because if not, he'd be talking all the time.
Is he in Miami?
Yes. He's just happy to hang around and use some of the work and try to make business.
It's a family business.
It's not very successful, but who knows? Miami may be the place. But it's just part of the complexity of a family. You have different people.
Did he go to Venice?
He managed to find the horses for us, which was quite useful when the car broke down. But if not, he was just hanging around a bit.
I mean, he is a travel agent, so.
Yeah, he's not very practical. He's always like, but you could go deeper, Laure. Why don't you go deeper? And, well, we're trying to get to Venice. So, it's like, he's just there,
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
It was a joy to experience this with you.